Why in the spousal imagery of the Bible is God always the bridegroom and the church always the bride? Could it be the other way? Could God be the bride and we be the bridegroom? Why not? Because we are always before the Creator in the posture of receptivity. Always. And this is the theology of a woman's body. Do you know what this means? John Paul says it this way. He says, woman is the model and archetype of the whole human race. She reveals to everyone, male and female, what it means to be human. Because to be human, this is my own paraphrase, not JP2 directly, but to be human means to open to receive divine life, conceive divine life, and bear it forth. And so can we come back to that mother of Mary icon again, Mary and Jesus icon. Here, Mary is the icon of what it means to be human. To open, to receive divine life, conceive divine life, and bear it forth. Christ could not have come as a female because the iconography is not correct. He comes as a bridegroom. It is critical that there is a man hanging on the cross and a woman at the foot of the cross. And what does he call her? Woman. She there symbolizes the church. And when he says, this is my body given for you, the symbol of the church, the bride, is the woman at the foot of the cross. And we know their union, this mystical union. It's obviously not a genital union. Here's how Christian writers have put it in the past. In the flesh, she is his mother. But in the spirit, she's the symbol of the bride. Where else does Jesus call Mary woman? At the wedding of Cana. Whenever Jesus calls Mary woman, we're at a wedding. What happens on the cross is a marriage. It's the consummation of the mystical marriage of Christ and the church. And it's fertile. It's fertile. How do we know it's fertile? Could we get the unity cross up here, Jason? Have you ever seen this depiction of the crucifixion? So here we have an artistic rendering of this mystical marriage taking place at the cross. Christ the bridegroom is on what Augustine of Hippo called the marriage bed of the cross. Augustine said, Christ mounts his marriage bed, not in pleasure, but in pain, to give up his body for his bride. And who's at the foot of the cross? And what does he call her? Woman. Woman. Yes, some Catholics, have exaggerated the role of Mary. As a Catholic, I'm confessing, many Catholics throughout history have exaggerated the role of Mary. And out of a misunderstanding of who Jesus is, sometimes Catholics have even said, well, let's go to Mary because she's not as threatening as Jesus. Whoa. Wrong. So if Catholics have been in error in one extreme here, may I humbly suggest Protestants have been in error in another extreme over here where we don't even pay any attention to this woman at all. We don't know what her role is in all this. If Jesus is our brother, wouldn't every Christian confess that? Jesus is my brother. Who's my mother? This woman's my mother. She's the new Eve. She's the mother of all the living. She's the mother of all those who have been regenerated, born again. And we show her the same honor that Jesus. I want to follow Jesus. I want to do everything Jesus did. Jesus showed this woman great honor. Why? Because he fulfilled the law. And the law was honor your father and mother. So I want to do what Jesus did. I want to honor my mother. That's the proper understanding of the Catholic devotion to Mary. Yes, it's gotten wacky here and there, and thank you for correcting us. There was one point from this morning's presentation that I didn't get to, I want to just touch on. We could and should spend a lot more time on this question, but we only have time to kind of dip our toe into it, and I'll encourage you to continue to pray through it. And it's the question of those who are unmarried in this life. In fact, Christ himself, and Paul re-emphasized it in his letters, some are actually called by Jesus to remain single in this life. And it's one of those passages that's sometimes so hard to understand, we kind of just skip over it. The theology of the body illuminates what Christ is talking about brilliantly. So let's take a look at Jesus' words. For some are eunuchs because they were born that way. Others were made that way by men. And others have renounced marriage because of the kingdom of heaven. Pause. What's a eunuch? A eunuch is someone physically incapable of having sexual relations. There are eunuchs from birth. Some birth defect prevented someone from having sexual relations. There are eunuchs made by men, castration. And there are some who freely, another translation says, freely choose to become eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. That does not mean they chop off their genitals. In other words, Jesus is saying there are some people who are capable of sexual relations, but they freely choose to renounce marriage. Why? As Jesus says, because marriage is bad, tainted, dirty, and evil. Right? Wrong. That is a Manichaean heresy condemned consistently by the church for 2,000 years. It is celibacy for God's sake, not celibacy for God's sake. It is celibacy for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Two bookends of the Bible. Begins with the marriage of man and woman, ends with the marriage of Christ and the church. Which one of these two marriages is our ultimate fulfillment? The marriage of Christ and the church. Some people, this is not the norm, the normal call is marriage. But some people are called by Jesus to skip this bookend of the Bible, to devote all of their yearning and ache and hunger for love and union to this bookend of the Bible, even here and now. In this way, they are not rejecting their sexuality. Far from it. They are living out the ultimate purpose and meaning of their sexuality, which is the marriage of Christ and the church. These two bookends give us the key for understanding the whole Bible. And when we're not reading the Bible through these two bookends, we're going to misunderstand all kinds of things. Here's just one example of something we'll misunderstand. Those who marry do well, those who refrain do better. It's better in the objective sense. Subjectively, as Paul himself points out, subjectively, what's better for you is the calling that God has put on your life. You know, in Catholic circles where I spend a lot of time, people will say to me, "Oh, Christopher, you should have been a celibate priest. You preach the gospel with such passion. You should have been a priest." And I say, "No, I shouldn't have been. I discerned that call. And I knew I was called to marriage." Paul says as much. He says, "I'm not saying those who refrain do better to restrict you, because some have this gift and some have the other." So subjectively, what's better for you is the calling God has on your life. If God's calling on your life is to be single, then don't wish to be married. If God's calling on your life is to be married, don't wish to be single. What is the calling on your life? That is the subjectively better calling for you. Now, should I be mad at God because he called me to marriage? Thanks for giving me the objectively inferior vocation, God. Thank you. Should I be upset about? No. Should those who are called to the objectively superior vocation, should they be like, no. What is your gift? What is your gift? And this is the key. Holiness is measured by love. Holiness is measured by love. You could have a married couple who are loving far more beautifully than somebody who remains single for the Lord, even single for the Lord. That's the unwise virgin. Are you following me here?